You are now live.
Thanks for joining us in this new year, our January 2026 edition of our Kentucky K-12 CIOs and EdTech Leaders Webcast. I'm David Couch with the Kentucky Department of Education. For those that are new, this is something that we do monthly. We share some information going on around the state, around the nation, get some feedback from districts. Through this, we have some poll questions for you to respond to. Obviously, the chat is open. We also open this up to all of our partners out there, our KEDS vendor partners, our educational co-ops, other parts of the agency. We sent the invite, they can join in. So thanks for everybody joining us on this cold January morning. So let's get this begin. So last month in December, I wanted to share with you, we always do the summary notes and highlights of those. I share those this way, but also they're posted on our KD Media portal. So besides just a copy of the webcast being posted, Lisa Moore is the one that does that work. Now with some of the assistance through AI, does the work of the summary notes. So if you ever want that out there, but just remind, we covered a lot of good material in December. Specifically, I would say to highlight as you're looking through it, the new digital readiness, the feedback that we get from you all, the inventories, that's now posted and they're linked to, it's there. We're going to cover the new infographic now, Marty. That's brand new, and that's based upon also feedback we get from districts, plus some other things, and other ways that we get data from the student, teacher, parents perspective. And I know we just published that very recently. We used it, and I'll talk a little bit in our presentation to the legislature. And it's one of the big reasons why we do it every year during around this time of year, is for the legislature, for the public, and it's come in real handy. I know last week when we were presenting to the legislature. So Marty, I'll let you take off and talk about the highlights of that. And we had a team of folks working on that with you.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And if you can, Dave, just let me know when you can see that. Got it?
I see your screen. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. So just wanted to share screen, and the best way to get to the infographic is to, if you just do a basic browser search, Google search for KETS Master Plan. And I'm going to go straight to the KETS Master Plan. And inside of the KETS Master Plan, we have our contents listed of the different pieces, parts, components of the KETS Master Plan. And so it seems a little bit sluggish here, but on the page of surveys and results. And so this is where we take the opportunity on surveys and results. That's actually Appendix B inside of our KETS Master Plan. And this is where we publish our infographic. There's also a link to the digital readiness report, which we highlighted last webcast last month. But this is the brand new published January 2026 digital readiness infographic. As David shared, this is, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see it a little bit. This is
Marty,
triangulates.
I'm not seeing it. I don't even. I'm seeing just still the web page on mine. I don't know if that's here, so I can share it if you want me to try to share it. Looks like we lost Marty. Marty, you there? Is everybody else here?
Yes.
Okay.
I have the same thing you had, David.
We're all here.
So what I'll do is I'll continue on with it. Marty's at our backup site.
Oh.
So tell me if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, good. And Marty will join on here. So this is, if you went to that appendix, this is the document that you would see, and I'll just scroll down through it. This is always excellent to just educate yourself from a statewide perspective on where we're at with these different kind of initiatives. This is something we update every year. We talked about this one for a bit. I think maybe in November, on why the student workstation ratio is better than a 1-to-1, and even for teachers. And so I'm always prepared for, and I was during the legislative session that I went to a presentation that didn't come up, but there's always, you guys have some explanations for that are good explanations for it. So that's one of the ones I have to spend some time usually explaining. We always like to highlight, the amount of internet usage we have and its uptime, and the speed that we have per student. The number of devices, as I can recall, has gone down a bit since the last time we did this last year. We have our one-to-one implementations. The Wi-Fi access is always a good way to educate the public. It also is helpful, just not the raw stats. This is some of the data that we get through some other mechanisms to collect it from, the difference it's making from a student perspective, and I appreciate the districts that are helping us collecting this portion of the data of just not the stuff, but how it's used within the classroom. Now teachers are using it. Digital citizenship is an important part that always comes up as we're immersed in a technology society. How we are we maintaining our good people skills by being immersed in that. This always is helpful in educating, adults about the use of it. These are always interesting stats from the teacher's point of view of how they're using it, what they're using it for. Marty would ask, one of these questions, and we'll circle back. Marty's at a remote site, and we'll ask him. So, we have a template that we use to create this. And so one of the questions we have in our poll questions would be, would you all be interested in a template to be using it for yourself for your own stats within the district? Like I say, we use this for statewide stats. I think it'd be very helpful as you're trying to make the case for a variety of things within your district of how it's being used within your organization, along with the other stats and how you compare to other districts. And that's the digital readiness allows you to compare yourself to other districts. So a nice tool, way to use both those tools. This is a good way to educate folks on the different ways that folks are communicating. This does remind me about the traceable communications kind of legislation that came out the last session, and that are trying to do some cleanup of that and address some issues that districts push back on. But that legislation impacts you all because a lot of the things that they use are digital communication tools. And obviously, one of the biggest ways that we communicate with parents and students, we call it Parent Portal, but the Student Portal too. This is one of the best tools out there that we have. And this is how students get their information. You can see right here for the Student Portal. Just a reminder for folks that haven't been with us for a while, Kentucky was the very first state in the nation to do this and to push for that. And it's been a big success for, I can recall as a parent, this was very helpful when my children were going through school. This is interesting too, and I always will have to explain this one. Marty, you back?
I sure am.
Okay, I'm at down here. This one, I'll just say, this is one I know Marty and I were prepared for this one, because in the last legislative session, districts were to stop using social media for students, but teachers can still use them and still use them for a lot of educational things. So this one, when we were preparing for that session, for that presentation, we expect to get some communication with this. So social media tools are still available to teachers use within the school building, as long as the school district wants to make those available to the teachers. But obviously there's some restrictions with students. Marty, so I can just, flow down here for you.
That's fantastic, David. I appreciate it, and thank you. Apparently, below 10 degrees, Teams needs a little bit more. No, I appreciate the jump in here. So we have
in fairness to Marty, he has been a plumber this morning at his house dealing with the water freezing pipes. So Marty, thanks for hanging in there and joining us.
It's all great. It's all great. It's all working. So no, David, we have this, obviously the storylines that are represented in the infographic are wrapped around really the concept areas in our Kentucky Academic Standards for Technology. So digital learning collaborator, we're getting feedback directly from students and teachers. Student voice is a major through line for all that we're doing from an education technology planning perspective. through the CETS program statewide. And so we want to emphasize student voice and these through lines to get direct feedback from teachers and students on how we're collaborating to ensure that we're matching up. The people side is represented strategically inside the infographic this year with our digital learning coaches, with our library media leaders. And so this is important. We've called out the people side pretty clearly. And then representing how our school leaders feel about the technology that we are implementing across the state. There's some really important data points here that we think is vital to call out. And David, as you mentioned with the legislature last week, and as we will continue, it's not just buying technologies, it's how we're implementing strategically and ensuring that our students and teachers and school leaders have a safe, secure, and responsible experience with the technology. So 95% of school leaders feel effective. The effective implementation of digital teaching and learning strategies is important to student success. That's awesome. That's right where we want it to be. And we'll continue to watch that trend line as side by side with 89% of school leaders feel that they encourage teachers to try new things. So this is where new and emerging technologies come into play. We felt like this was a great jump off point for later on as we get into tech trends. David, if you want to scroll down, trying new things with emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and how that can effectively fit into our practices. We really call out the cybersecurity space again this year. 312 large-scale organized network attacks were successfully mitigated. That's important for us. Now, you'll note if you do a side-by-side with previous versions of this infographic, that number's down, and that's awesome for us. We're still a huge target in K-12. However, we've implemented some very important strategies that we feel like have pushed that number down to even a more manageable space. Of course, 137 billion unauthorized connection attempts is still a massive number. And so we're continuing to work our strategies there to mitigate those as well. We've talked about our device footprint. That's important for us to understand, not just from an inventory perspective, but thinking about sustainability, thinking about refresh cycles and how we manage those are extremely important. Of course, we're calling out our CETS operative assistants to continue to watch that trend. You'll see these are 1-year bar stacks. And then finally, David, if we can go down just one more to the closeout of the infographic for this year. We did a special call out for artificial intelligence. Again, triangulating a couple of different data pieces here. One is 80% of us now in our districts are working towards that intentional effort, again, of encouraging, engaging, empowering safe, secure, and responsible uses of AI. There's a lot that goes into that, not just selection of the tooling, but understanding that it's about the responsible uses of the tools. And so that's important for us, especially when you stack in what our teachers are saying next to what our students are saying. And so there's a couple interesting data points that we have dug into and believe that there's a couple different reasons behind, especially when it may be a little bit different than what you would expect. And so when 69%, I want to call out a couple points here, 69% of our school administrators are reporting that they're using artificial intelligence in daily tasks. 78% of our teachers feel comfortable or somewhat comfortable, tag there, incorporating AI into their daily tasks, creating resources, things like that. But when we look at what our students are saying, and 46% are saying that on their own time, they're starting to leverage some artificial intelligence tooling to do some things that they're interested in, again, on their own time. But only 28% of 6th through 12th graders reported this past cycle that they're using artificial intelligence for schoolwork or homework. That's interesting. That's important. Perception is reality. We want to definitely key in on perception. But we also know that in many cases, when we're not yet fully to the space of fluency, AI fluency, that our students may report something a bit lower than actual. And so there's some meaning behind that. That's important, and we'll continue to watch that trend. The one that I think is awesome is 45% of our 3rd through 5th grade students reported that teachers have used artificial intelligence in some way in a lesson with their entire class. And so that's group instruction, leveraging AI, demonstrating AI use, and we believe that we're pushing it on safe, secure, and responsible uses there. So that's important to kind of watch that trending go, especially as we adhere to our area of emphasis in the CATS master plan. So finalizing out QR code linking to the infographic, definitely continuing to look at traditional versus mobile devices. You can look at that trend. That trend is going to continue to.
I lost Marty again. That definitely is a trend. I'll finish up for him. This trend that we see, that these are laptops kind of devices, or these are the desktop devices that are dropping in numbers, and these are obviously the laptops that are increasing in number, and that's been on a trend for quite some time. Still room for laptops, but it's getting lower and lower as every year passes. Two things, and just Marty, we lost you again for just a second. The dial-up, do they have just to have dial-up there where we all live? I'm not sure. We gotta.
It's not, it's not funny. I appreciate you. That's not funny, and yeah.
So you gotta remember, Marty's up on the top of a telephone pole right now.
This
is awesome. I should do this more often. This is great.
I would just say that we have 2 questions that we'll circle back to toward the end. If you could fill them out. Are you interested in the template? Right. And then, is there anything that stands out? I think that's one of the questions we had from the infographic, right?
Yep.
So you just respond to those. Yeah.
Right on. All right.
And next up, Mike, we didn't have a chance to meet, and Dee Dee either, during our normal OET leadership team meeting to prep for these the day prior. So I want to give you a chance. I know we talked about this last month, and just in the summary notes, we spent some time and showing what the patterns had been. But I know we're starting that work. We have a fairly short shot clock that we got to get this all the way through, all the gamut that's got to be going through. And I also want to give you a chance, anything else that you want to cover. And that goes for Dee Dee and Matt Jury. Anything else? I have a specific topic here. If you have something else you want to hit on during your time here, please do so.
So yeah, David, as you indicated, we mentioned last month about the fact that we've got our existing network products and services contracts that'll be coming to an end, so we're well on pace to identify what the CATS and E-rate, CATS certified E-rate eligible contracts will be for the 2027. Make sure I'm saying that right. To be effective no later than July 2027, but we will have in place prior to the E-rate filing window, have those contracts and those purchasing mechanisms available and identified prior to January of 2027 to allow for E-rate applications and so forth. So that works well in process. People will be exposed to some of that work as it goes on, but it is a procurement activity, so we will be limited on how much detail we share in open discussions and forums, but well in process, and want folks to be aware of that. If you, as a district, if you have things that just are on your mind regarding the network products and services contracts and that whole arena of what we do, make sure you get that information to your CATS regional engineer, because they will have an avenue by which to make sure that we're not missing anything that districts want to make sure that we're thinking about and considering as we ensure we have those things in place for the upcoming fiscal year. The other thing that the only thing that really quickly come to mind, David, was just a reminder on the offers of assistance. All districts should have, or I think a few are in process of getting that first round of offers, which is $12 per ADA. And obviously the second offers that will be a little later on within the next couple of months will be the $9 for the total of $21 for the year. If there's something else you were thinking I was going to mention, remind me.
Nope, that's good. Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
Dee Dee, I know you were also dealing, I think Dee Dee's here, was also dealing with an issue at the house, house related.
Yeah, Marty's got water problems. I have heater problems. This is like, I hope all the rest of you are doing much better than the two of us this morning. Good thing is I had somebody come back. It was very responsive. So all's good for us too. Just a few things. We did have a major Infinite Campus upgrade over the holiday break. SQL 20 moved to SQL 22. The servers were also moved to a new data center. That's all been completed. It went relatively well. There were a few KDE processes that lagged maybe a couple of days coming back up that were more of a reporting side of things. But other than that, I think we got through it. Thanks to all of you locally that had to make sure things were still operational on your end during a time that normally would be your holiday break. So appreciate all the efforts, both at KDE and in the districts. So just also wanted to mention, there seems to be some confusion around our ACT scores. So I'm hoping that the CIOs can kind of help us make sure that the right people in the districts know. ACT scores we used to get because we had an ACT contract. We got the junior assessment scores annually. We also got quarterly or maybe even monthly, that national scores. When that contract ended the end of June, we no longer get ACT scores. That is impactful for students that want those scores on their local transcripts. They're right now scholarship season, so they're trying to get transcripts out there. Locally, you can load those scores. Those scores are available to districts. So it's optional. Katie's not saying thou shalt, but they're saying that, if it's helpful. And the universities that I have talked to say it is very helpful for them to have those scores on the transcript. The district can upload those through the same process that we used in Infinite Campus. So just help us alert counselors or whoever's doing your transcripts locally of that change. SAT scores have always been provided and uploaded, and as well as they will be with the new state administration of those scores too. But ACT, we do not have access to those scores any longer at the state level. So I apologize that we can't help. I wish we could, but that is a change that I'm not sure has gotten to everybody that needs to know it, just based on some of the constituent inquiry. We got a constituent inquiry and some other inquiries even last week. So school report card, this is pretty much a downtime for school report card from your all's end, but for us, the school report card right now, we're starting to plan for 2026. We know they could potentially be some legislative change to assessment accountability that will have to impact and make some changes. But if you have changes and you you see things you'd like to see differently, or maybe things aren't as clear as they could be, let us know, because we would like to incorporate that into our feedback. To our vendor, it continues to be ANLAR. The only thing I wanted to mention today is we do have some on our website, our training website, we do have some data privacy and security training. If you've got questions on data retention instruction, there is a new video out there, and these are federal resources. And just make sure that you know what it is you need to hold on to as far as retention, and don't hold on to it beyond the retention timeframes if you can help it. We're still working on Infinite Campus to improve some of the functionality there, so that we can, like we've done for the Social Security number, try to remove some of the older data that is not necessarily required to be maintained. So we did have a few questions, David, and coming at the last minute, I'm not sure if the questions got put in there or not, to be honest with you. Okay.
Yeah, and I know we have them available, so you can see too in chat.
Okay.
The results of them. Yeah.
So, take some time. Your feedback on these type of questions is very helpful for us. So take some time to be responsive to those polls.
Yeah.
That's all I got, David.
Thank you, Dee Dee. And most of you know is we take these results and we put them in the summary notes that's gone out. So you'll notice that last month we asked a couple poll questions, and it's really helpful to just not us, but hopefully you all to kind of see how your response is similar or dissimilar to your peers and other districts around the state.
Looks like we have one district that's still having some problems. If there's anything I could do to help, reach out to me on the transition to SQL, the data center move. I'm not aware about standing issues. I'm not saying there aren't any, but reach out to me if there's anything I can do to help.
Yeah, and records retention is something that you can overkeep for a lot longer than you got to keep. And I see probably more folks overkeeping than necessarily underkeeping, but there's certain ones that you need to keep for a certain period of time. We have the libraries and archives here in Kentucky, and there's warehouses filled with of documents I'm not so sure have to be kept there. And looks like when people leave, they just grab a bunch of things, put them in a file, and send it over there without really diving through them. So, and because they're afraid that something is something they're supposed to keep, they're just taking the caution. I'm just going to keep everything. You probably see that same kind of thing in the digital world as well. People keeping everything versus slimming it down. I did see a response there about the infographic. And I'm assuming that if you're not at a 1-to-1 or you're a 2-to-1, how is that shown? We're showing cumulative results across the state. Now, the way you can we tell folks, and you can make the point, is look at the digital readiness. The digital readiness report there's a link in it in the summary notes from last month. It will show how, if you want to show how your district compares to other districts, specific ones, or the entire region that you're in, or the entire state. And so that's the way we show that versus the cumulative of the entire state. Would that be right, Marty?
Yeah, that's right. And this is a great question from Philip, and I responded also in the chat directly. And when we're looking at 1-to-1 now, historic legacy, it was a number, it was a ratio conversation, and we've in the past couple of years switched to looking at the implementation. And so, dedicated devices assigned to students, and then that secondary question, which we chose not to represent on the infographic this year, is then are students able to take those beyond campus? And so that representation in percentage that is reported by each district is what that visual is. It's a really good progression for us across the state.
Thanks. Next up, we have Matt Jury. Matt, usually you're giving a GoGuardian implementation update, but also anything else that you'd like to cover with districts during this time.
Sure. So we got a couple of really good updates in regard to GoGuardian. I'll go ahead and discuss the things that we've continued to measure really quick, which is we're still seeing 66 districts that still have at least one device still running a version prior to 1.19.2. We still see 43 districts with more than 20 devices running a version prior to 1.19.2. We also continue to work with the waiver districts. I don't have any updates on that. Those districts know that GoGuardian's been reaching out to them and talking with them. We don't have any updates on that since the last time we talked a month ago, which is understandable considering the holidays and the time districts were away. But we'll rekindle that here now at the beginning of the year to see where those conversations stand. What's really great to announce is that on Friday, Paul was testing 1.23.0 and it passed QA. And we gave GoGuardian the thumbs up just this morning to send that out to org management for districts, which is a huge step for a couple of reasons. One, it introduces the functionality for auto update, which districts have been waiting on and we've been waiting on, which is great. Glad to say that auto update won't just automatically roll as soon as GoGuardian releases something. We'll still have the QA option in the middle of that for us to test all of our Kentucky specific products and make sure everything works well there before we roll that to school districts. That work that Paul's been doing is critical for each of these releases. So we want to make sure that we're still have that option. So GoGuardian has built in that functionality for us to do that, which is great. What's really wonderful is that it's finally going to pull in reporting host names back to GoGuardians to where we will be able to know exactly how many Windows devices are running which version for every school district. The data that we've been using, to use just kind of a crude analogy, is that the number of people you see in your building today isn't the same as the number of people who are in your building today. And what we've had to do is we've had to track the number of versions we're seeing come back to GoGuardian in regard to usage, and then report on that. And finally, we'll not have to make those correlations anymore. And we'll finally get a firm machine number count by version, by operating system, to finally report back to school districts on and be able to track our progress with. So it's a big deal. I'm hoping, we haven't seen anything back from GoGuardian yet saying when they'll release that to org management. I'm hoping that'll be later today or tomorrow. But we should we'll send some sort of update out regarding that probably through the KEs to let you know. I think that's all I've got.
Okay. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Want to give you an update on our additional budget request for KETS that we had on the 13th of January. Had a couple people in this room, as myself and Marty Park and Lisa Moore and Mike Lettingham were there. Here is some good news associated with that. I don't know how many additional budget requests the Department of Education had. I don't know if it's 20 or 25, but the legislature only selected 3 to come over and brief them on those 3. So that, I consider that a good sign. It's no guarantee that we'll get it, but much further than we've gotten in our previous 2 attempts in the major funding sessions to get the KETS baseline raised. So that was good in itself, a good news item to get that opportunity to present to them. I'm sharing with you, and I have a link here of actually that presentation. So if you were to click on that link, it's in YouTube, and all the presentations now are available from the legislature, just not the KT broadcast. So I put that on there. But I want to take you through what I covered. The first one is, and this really is one of the best things that happens for selling the increase of funding, is the Auditor of Public Accounts report. The little snippet, what I've done is I've taken the 5 areas where they identified, if you just a reminder, and we have some new folks, the auditor did the most extensive study of the Department of Education in the past 30 years, at least. And in their main upfront finding, they found 4 noteworthy accomplishments, and KETS, the Kentucky Education Technology System, was one of those 4. And so I read off to them, and I've done that in the past for you, and it's up actually on our KD OET portion of our website, that snippet. I'm not going to read it off again, but it only takes about 2 or 3 minutes, and I read that off to them. So it sets a nice tone that we have been good stewards of taxpayer money, very frugal with it, and made a big benefit with it for many years, over a period of 3 decades going forward. And so that was the first thing that I covered with them. I also shared with them the KETS timeline. I call it our greatest hits album. Over the course of 1992 through today, to where we're the pioneer and national leader in most aspects of education technology, and is still trying to always get better, which I think has been a key part of our success. Also part of that package is what Marty Park just covered with you, is the latest infographic. I also every time I present to the Kentucky Board of Education, I use that. It's used for a variety of ways to give folks a good feeling of the heartbeat of education technology, and that was very helpful to put out there. I also share with them, with what I've shared with you all in the past, is our KETS baseline is now 15.4 million, and we've asked to raise it 14.6 million a year to $30 million a year. And to give you a feel is, for a good portion of that raise of 14.6 million, is just trying to cover that the cuts that we've received really since 2006. We've received about $11 million in cuts, and nobody's just picking on us. This had to do with the housing crisis. And always we were promised that we would get that restored, and it takes a lot. Just so you know, the reason you got to fight cuts a lot is it takes a big battle to get those restored. So that's 11 million of that. Another 4 million or 4.5 million has been, we've not got a cost of living increase since 1992. Add those two together and you get close to the $15 million that we're asking for. And there are certain shared services, and I shared this with them, that we've reached the point that we will have to turn them off or shift those to districts being responsible. And this is a good teaching point financially, is districts will pay 40 to 60% more for those shifted over to you all. And the reason is we're buying them in mass. We're buying that service or product in mass at the state level. When individual districts buy it, you start paying, you lose that mass discount and you start paying a much larger price, which is usually 40 to 60% more. And so that's why there are certain strategic things that we buy at the state level. Anyone understands the basics of finance, the way you drive down cost is you buy a particular item within a certain period of time, and it significantly reduces the price of that product. By us no longer buying it, I no longer guarantee it will significantly raise the price of that product. Online registration is an example of that with Infinite Campus. And I gave that example is, the price we get is 46% less. If districts take that on, they'll pay that price. And online registration has been one of the greatest hits with parents. It's made it a much better experience for students to begin the school year. The data is much better. It's the reason North Carolina and Delaware buy that product for their entire state. Those two states have recently joined Kentucky in buying Infinite Campus across state, and their legislature funded that product across its state. So part of this is a budget committee that we're presenting to. So you have to spend a lot of time and energy on the budget. And there have been new basic services that we've added to KET since 1992. We've not stood still. That's another reason we need the budget increase. And for the financial assistance to districts, those have been reduced from record highs that we had in the 90s to a pretty stable. We went through the infographic, so that's been flatlined. But at some point, if you do not get the additional budget request, it starts digging into those offers of assistance that we send to districts. It's just going to happen. There's no other way to pay for it except for going in that direction. So we're really at a tough spot. And I did share with them the chief financial officers at the Kentucky Association for School Officers ranked the funding of KETS really high, number 4. They agreed with that priority that our state board came up with, because our finance officers, and hopefully you all have worked on the finance officers, understanding that big cost shift comes to be borne on the district to take on that service. I also shared with them is the 6 items, the big items that we're asking for with the additional budget request. Number 1 is for our computer science and IT academy. That also took a budget cut, part of the housing market crash. We are now maximized the amount of certificates and certifications that students are getting through the IT Academy and Computer Science Academy. We're at the point, if we do not get a funding increase, we will have to turn away students from getting marketable certifications in the computer science field. Number 2 that we've asked is to help us with our cybersecurity defense. I shared with them, much like you saw in the infographic, that we've had 137 billion attempted cyber attacks over the past year. Bob, thanks for getting that information. I also shared with them that it has increased from 4 billion when COVID first started. So this has been a big business for mainly foreign countries to attack organizations in the United States. We do have United States organizations that are doing that as well. Don't want to let totally off the hook. But we need something to really help us with our cybersecurity defense. We have done a good job with that, but we need some things to help us out with that going forward. And CUES is part of that solution. A couple of things that we're doing. I already talked about the Infinite Campus, campus learning, and online registration as being the 3rd out of those 6 items. Number 4 is closely related. In 2006, when we got the funding to put Infinite Campus across the state, the legislature identified funding to implement it, but did not identify the funding for the ongoing costs, particularly the state accumulator that takes all the data from districts and provides it to the legislature, to Kentucky Stats. This is data that are power user of the legislature, and they did not fund the ongoing costs. So we've had to take it from a temporary source that is reducing in cost. And ideally that would have a plus side on the offers of assistance if he had to stop using that temporary source. Number 5 is to deal with the cost of living increases. For example, Munis never have received that. It's used across our state. Our internet content management system, anything we're doing with the school report card dashboard, e-transcripts, and by the way, e-transcripts that Dee Dee's talking about is the number 1 item that is accessed on our OET portion of our website. And transcripts in general are the number 1 call that we get here at KD, the agency. So definitely that should be something of interest. Our virtual library, trying to keep that going as well. We've all reached the last point of that. And the item number 6 I have on there is to increase the KETS offers of assistance to help districts with the replacement of devices that have gotten aged during that they were bought with COVID, that are core to what they need to do, and help us out with the growth of artificial intelligence, with particularly professional development and training. I can tell you, and Marty is, the legislators seem very respective. They respected us and they were receptive to it. I would say both of those. We were the first one out of the 3 that were asked to present, and that's a good sign too. And the good sign too is, you can tell when you're presenting if the audience is first paying attention, and then secondly, are they engaged with you and agreeing? And it felt like they were. So I took that as going to a good sign. So once again, it's not a guarantee. We did have a former superintendent who is now the chair of the education committee, was there, and he made some very good compliments of KETS in general, and support of it. So I would say so far so good, but we'll still need you and your conversations with your superintendent and financial officer to make sure this stays on their radar screen as a priority. Marty, comments, and anyone else in the room would like to make about it?
No, I think, again, they're very receptive. We were prepared for, David, we were, as per usual, we were prepared for a bunch of questions, and, you never know the interest that committee members will have. One of the questions that we did receive, beyond the member who really gave positive remarks about KETS through the years, question was just a clarification of what the amount of money that we were asking for to raise the KETS baseline, and just the sense that maybe that was a reasonable amount, or maybe we should have asked for more. It definitely was not the sense of that's asking for too much. I think you would agree with that.
Yeah. Like I say, it goes through a long process, but this is as far as it's gotten in a while. So try to keep the momentum going. Next up, I sent you a variety of links that are related to Kentucky Wired and the Kentucky Communications Network Authority as it relates to our Kentucky K-12 internet services. So there was an article that ran in the Lexington Herald in early January, and then on January the 12th is the KCNA was asked to come and present to the legislature, which was on a Monday. I included a link to that presentation. And then that afternoon, 2 pieces of legislation were released in both the House and Senate at the same time, addressing some specific things about KCNA and Kentucky Wired going forward. I also want to mention to you the news article talked about KCNA released an RFP. That RFP was canceled December 17th. So what you see there in the news article, that RFP has been canceled for a variety of very good reasons, and we were very supportive of that being canceled. So I want to give you a chance to make sure you look at that. Matt, Jury, I think you were gone a couple of days on training, and you're like, how long have I been gone? Because all the things that happened in a very, very short period of time, and they were happening. So encourage you to take a look at those links. It does involve a variety of things that really change the leadership and the board of KCNA, and obviously we have very much an interest in that. that service, that internet service that one of our prime contractors uses in providing services to school districts. I did want to cover, Lisa Moore help me out, some other legislation that is happening right now that we are aware of. I've already talked about the ABR and KCNA. There's one piece of legislation that we're looking at that's dealing with a legislator being interested in inserting education technology data elements. Our recommendation to that legislature, and it's a brand new legislature, and this happens, well-meaning folks, not aware that we already are doing a lot of what they're asking in new legislation. And so we're going to ask to meet with that legislator to educate her on all the different kind of things we already collect. We've already covered a lot in the digital readiness and the infographic that this legislator is probably not aware of. The part that did get me, and I'd be interested in your comments, is I'm not aware of any other state or any other part of the Department of Education that collects data down to the school level. And we would not be, in support of collecting data down to the school level. And one of the requests by the legislator is wanting a lot of specific data elements down to the school level versus the summative at the district level. And obviously for us, for example, OET, the district level has served us, is more than enough for us, and it has been for 3 decades. So I'll probably have to share that discussion that no other DOE that I'm aware of, or other parts of KD is collecting down any data element down to the school level. And obviously that would increase the load on you all to populate something and us as well. So, but it looks like 99% of, it's not been introduced. Yeah, it's not been introduced. It's in concept phase. I'm just trying to give you some feedback I'd like to maybe get some initial feel for what you all would feel collecting. And these are things that, for example, shared service. You may be doing maintenance across a district, and you've not broken out, well, this school gets this much and this much and this much. You just know that you provide that service and don't track it and don't break it out that way. And it'd be pretty big headache to do that. And even if you said, well, I'll base it on ADA, it's pretty meaningless because one of the schools maybe get 90% one year and 5% the next year. So we'll let you know how that goes. Like I say, it's been or getting ready to be proposed. We've seen an advanced copy of it. Another one has to do with, and I think this is coming from higher ed, of wanting us to collect data elements that we feel that actually the parents should be providing directly versus the agency being involved at all. Or they already have a way to get that data without involving the agency providing it. Social Security numbers would be one of those. Is no other DOE in America collects Social Security numbers of students, and just so you know, Lisa, that'll be line number 1 in our response for good reasons. They get that a variety of other ways, either directly from a parent or another technique. So that's in concept phase, not execution phase. And just for those that are new to this goes through a lot of different wickets, but we definitely get a chance to give our feedback to it. The Kentucky educator placement system looks like it has a sponsor now that would allow the funds that are already in place when a teacher recertifies their teaching certificate to help be used. And it does make sense for education replacement system for teachers to take a look at different openings across the state. Obviously, the challenge with that is when a district fills a position, it's showing it as closed. You can get 10 different systems, and if you don't do that one, it'll still be out of date. But it does appear that has a sponsor. Once again, that's a long cycle it's got to go through, but for the first time, it probably has a sponsor to do that, along with language cleanup that we've been trying for 2 or 3 decades to get removed. The teacher computer purchase, which hasn't been used probably 2.5 decades, and the Council for Education Technology, which hasn't met in over 30 years. I think we found a sponsor to help us and seem enthusiastic about helping us finally remove those and get them across the finish line. The SEEK system, that's a data system. At least I can't remember the date. I know they present this week. I don't know, you know what day it is they're presenting?
Right now.
Oh, okay. So we'll have to see how that went.
They met last week, but they're actually presenting to budget review. That it started at 10 a.m.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a data system. So we'll see how that one goes. I mentioned last month that on the pre-K data system, obviously that's got to get all the way through the wickets of, is there going to be funding overall for pre-K? That's a big initiative from the governor's office, but there could be pushback from the Senate and House on that. And I saw KET's Kentucky Connect. I saw some of that pushback. So I don't know how well that makes it all the way through the gamut. And definitely the data system for it, but definitely we're trying to keep up with that. Assessment accountability is moving on. Looks like it's got some positive things that occur. That the technology ones, it feels like the interim assessment, and I'll do like map type. I just won't do map tests. That gives districts, for those not familiar with it, gives them kind of a feel for how students are doing before their summative tests at the end of the year, so they kind of can make some adjustments. There were some proposals about getting funding to actually pay for that and pay for that across the state and kind of get that standardized and help reduce that as a purchasing burden from the district and use the buying power of the state once again to reduce that cost. Right now, I don't see that happening. But it could happen, but we keep that on the radar screen. I've seen kind of changes with that. As part of the infographic Marty showed, we set a record this year for amount of online tests we gave at the summative test at the end of the year. That would definitely impact the summative online test, along with what Dee Dee was talking about, the school report card dashboard would have to have some changes to that. So we're closely looking at that one. I already mentioned about Senate Bill 181, the traceable digital communications. We showed some of those major ones that are used by parents and students on our infographic. AI, I mentioned that there's been some things proposed to protect children, particularly minor children from AI as it relates to, I can see social media. I can see the companions being concerned about that. Using AI as your friend versus you're just trying to get data from it. And so far, there has been some, and I mentioned this last month, we keep it on our radar screen, about making computer science as a graduation requirement. That has not, to my knowledge, been posted yet, but it's our understanding that it's in heavy discussions, and that will go through a lot of different ways as well. Lisa, did I mention anything major that's education technology related?
The only one, David, that we spent some time on and prepared a review for is House Bill 44, and that was the one that's an act relating to robotics. It creates a robotics funding selection committee and a fund to award grants. And anyone can go out there and take a look at it, but our review basically said that we felt like it was complementary to what we do within STLP and not in competition with it. But it does have quite a bit of oversight that would be necessary at the KDE level. So never seen this bill before, not sure how it will progress, but KDE is tracking over 125 bills right now, but a lot of those are like tax related and that sort of thing. That's about a quarter of the bills that have been introduced so far are education and tax related.
Thanks. Next up is artificial intelligence, and I like what Jody Rose said. It's kind of like sunlight; it's everywhere. So you're dealing with it in every capacity, and everybody's remarketing themselves as AI, even though it may be just computer science or something they were already doing. But we were asked to present to superintendents during the All Superintendents Webcast. So we had a presentation to the legislature on the 13th that we've talked about, and in the afternoon was the AI portion. And the teaching point that I was making to superintendents, and I've given a link to that presentations on our KDE media portal, along with the information on our OET portion of our website. But I wanted to show it's a team effort between the Commissioner's Office, that would be your all superintendent, our Office of Teaching and Learning and Chief Academic Officer, and Career and Technical Education, and the Office of Education Technology. And I'm hoping you're working collectively with those folks in your district about artificial intelligence, and we try to model that in front of superintendents. I did tell the superintendents that perhaps their best resource to talk about the resources available in artificial intelligence are your all's positions, the chief information officer, EdTech leaders, because this is basically something, a topic we have covered nearly every month in these webcasts for now going on 3 years. And we've shared with you all the resources that are available. I'm hoping you've taken that opportunity to share them with the right folks within your district. But I asked them to turn to you, and I then went through the details of the AI portion of our website and OET, and I just went down and highlighted all the items that were in that. I encourage you to take a re-look at that. I did talk about the CIO Summit and encourage them to take a look at least the last March CIO Summit, where we went into, and I suspect for the fourth year, although we haven't finalized CIO Summit, this will be a topic as well. But we asked them what are the significant noticeable differences that you all have noticed over the past year. What are the big things you're expecting going forward? What are the concerns you have, and what are the additional resources that you have? And so those are 23 tables of folks that, as you know, is from the feedback that we get from at the end of year feedback and the feedback in the summit. We don't publicly put out there any district's name or individual's name when they're giving those responses to us in somewhat confidence. But they can see the seam of it. We had 23 tables, and they can get a feel for the one idea of feedback. I thought that was a really good document on there. I did ask Marty to share, and I'm asking him to here. Marty, let me know if I need to. I'm prepared. What you're doing, I'm prepared to show your tool AI in action if you'd like me to do that for you. But I also wanted the superintendents aware of other resources beyond these that we're going to share with you. The Digital Learning Coach Network is outstanding way, and I know Marty will talk about here in just a second what they're doing already to help out districts with artificial intelligence. You have the educational cooperatives that are meeting. I know principal groups are meeting, but even through the generative AI tools, you can just ask for what is the free AI tools available for K-12 and what are the paid ones, and it gives you a pretty good listing of those. Of course, you all have to vet through that. It gives you a good feel for it. I did then part of that webcast. We had Beth Hargis, who is my teammate in Career Technical Education, the Associate Commissioner there, talked about what it meant for the pathways. And then we had our Chief Academic Officer, Mickey Marinero, to talk about Morelli, talk about how it affects the other parts of the content areas beyond computer science and technology standards and library media, how we expect artificial intelligence to be in a flavor of all the academic standards going forward. So Marty, I'm gonna let you share the AI in action chart.
That sounds fantastic. And hopefully you can see my screen.
I'm on standby here.
Okay, do you see my screen?
I don't see your screen yet.
Okay.
I now see it.
Okay, awesome. So on our Kentucky Department of Education website, under Education Technology, this is our Office of Education Technology landing page. And if you scroll down to hot topics and trending, obviously, as discussed over the last 2.5, 3 years, artificial intelligence is indeed continues to be a hot and trending topic. So I'm going to tap on that page. And we just wanted to walk you through easy access to this, especially because we did spend some time with your superintendents. I had a really good representation of superintendents on that call. And David, can you just check and make sure you can still hear me?
I can still hear you. It's not
Okay.
coming up. You want me to just show it?
Yeah, let's try that.
Okay. So I'm sharing. Can you all see the AI in action across Kentucky?
Yeah, so this is and David, what we wanted to do was pull together just a really quick kind of study guide or quick sheet on all of the artificial intelligence implementations and strategies that we've been working on from the Kentucky Department of Education inside of our Office of Education Technology. We broke it down into 6 key areas, such as guidance, standards and readiness. And if you scroll down, we have an area for students and teacher support, professional learning, digital citizenship, and AI fluency. Again, beyond just the understanding of artificial intelligence and generative AI, it's that fluency conversation on actually appropriately and responsibly and securely using. So that's the applying of the understanding of AI, and not just in our schools for school efficiency, but also in the learning space is very important. And in this area that we've captured on emerging innovations, these are strategies from the Kentucky Department of Education current. This is not all inclusive, but this is just a quick sheet so that you can and others can see how we're capturing and moving things forward. We're not sitting back and waiting. We're continuing to really push forward with safe, secure, and responsible implementations. Page 1 is just an overview, and then each page after that, again, just a quick sheet study guide, a little bit more detail. Thank you, Rebecca, for dropping that page into the chat. That's very helpful. And then the final page is just a list so that you can kind of see in kind of a quick list. But we're referring to this as AI in action, and really pushing on, and we'll keep saying it, but it's engaging and encouraging really that safe, secure, and responsible use. There's certainly edges. Jody Rose, I think, David, you cited AI is like sunlight. It's everywhere. And also, if you get too close to it, it can burn you. I think I would add that. And so we want to make sure that we fully understand the implications, but some strategies that are currently working. And so we thought it'd be helpful to show. We spent some time with your superintendents, and a great conversation piece if your superintendent was not able to join. Thanks, David.
And this is something Marty and team put together for our commissioner, Commissioner Fletcher, to help bring this all together as he's talking with legislators. And so we thought it'd be helpful to you all, maybe in your discussion within your district.
And one of the we don't want to go through each item here, but there's this, because that turns into a 3-hour meeting, because there's a lot of details behind it, David. But one you mentioned, for example, our Digital Learning Coach Network, led by Laura Raganos, has been working on artificial intelligence implementation for quite some time. This is not a new conversation. Just last week, a week and a half ago, the network met regionally. Laura led through extended conversations on artificial intelligence implementation, and that's a regular topic through that Digital Learning Coach Network. We believe that from a professional learning perspective, it's the best bang for the buck that we can get in real-time professional learning with teachers and leaders. And so we'll continue to push and expand. We've got a proposal in place to expand that, and working directly with other networks across the state, including content areas, and also our education cooperatives in a little bit more strategic way, but that would take some additional funding. So thank you.
Thanks, Marty. Chuck, it would not be a monthly webcast or OET Team Huddle without you giving a Q's update.
And
well,
David,
thank you, David. Go ahead, Marty.
If it's okay, David, can you check the agenda in between or right before that legislative item? I didn't know if you wanted to hit on that before we move on to Chuck.
Which item you talking about?
We had an item for the Kentucky Communications Network Authority.
Yeah, I got it. I get that. You may have been frozen and out of loop.
I probably was. Okay, thank you.
I did get it. Yeah.
Cool. So thank you, David. Just an update on Q's, but before I do, let me just say this to our amazing and awesome EdTech community, and I mean that sincerely. The break for the holidays, as we're now into a new year, gave us a really awesome opportunity to kind of reflect upon all of the awesome work that 2025 presented to us, as well as all that we've got coming up for 2026. And, I personally had a tremendous opportunity starting late November to travel into each one of our regional meetings. And it's always so well received from my perspective to interact with our customer base and get your feedback. Okay, your success stories, your challenges. Number one, I want to thank our EdTech community for welcoming me and other members of our staff in. I want to thank you for all of your leadership and your hard work this past year when it comes to the CUES initiative, because Lord knows it's been hard. Okay, and as we enter 2026, I kind of look at this specific, and let me just pause for a second. When I talk CUES, I'm being very general about an overall program that really has three primary components, okay? There's the implementation of rapid identity, as that new primary source of authentication, all right, an IDP. There's the implementation of a new solution for IP services, which is InfoBlocks, ultimately leading up to the decommissioning of on-prem Active Directory. So just a status update on all three. When we talk about rapid identity, I kind of looked at that Christmas break as kind of a halftime at a game. And it was a great opportunity to review some game film, not only from what I gathered specifically in meeting with each of you at the regional level, but also in reviewing thoroughly our top 5 feedback, which I know we're going to talk about later today. And what I will say is that top 5 feedback was super. It was awesome. But it's a reflection of how hard this work is. I think we all, and I want y'all to understand, we recognize that it's really hard, all right, to get those that are responsible for enrolling students and hiring staff to work together with technology and all agree to the same set of processes. That's hard work, okay? It's been really hard to clean up the mountain of data in connected systems to make sure that everything's in sync. I mean, it's really hard to learn a brand new system, all right, that now has multiple connections to all kinds of other stuff. We know it's hard to fit all of this work into your super busy schedules. And I will say this, because the nature of the work is hard itself, what we don't need to do, and I say we, our office, as well as our partner, Identity Automation, we don't need to make it any harder. So a lot of what we've been focusing on as we've taken a break is some resource adjustments, all right, to make sure that during the process, especially when our end users are impacted on things like Go Live, that we've got the right amount of technical resources available to help you deal with issues at the local level. So we're making those adjustments as we speak, and we're already seeing with cohorts 3, and even the latter part of cohort 2, that things are running much smoother. The processes have improved. The people are better positioned. So we're really excited about where we're at overall with the initiative. As David likes to say, not that we can't get better, and we're going to make sure that we keep pressing on improvement all throughout. But just to give you some stats specific to the rapid identity implementation, we've got 106 districts that are currently in flight. Half of them have already went live. The other half is in process. We've got 40 some odd that are in some form or fashion of claiming accounts. Either they've completed or they're starting to claim, or they've claimed students and now they're working on staff, or vice versa. We've got a number of districts that have already federated all of their services back to rapid identity as that single source of authentication. We've got a lot of movement right now, lighting up some of the really critical cybersecurity components behind the scenes with Shield ID, Safe ID. And just to give you some numbers, we've got 17 districts now with Shield ID up and running, 55 with Safe ID, and 134 that have deployed Fish ID, all of which are super important. So obviously we're going to continue on this really, really important work with a target to have everyone done with rapid identity by August 30th of 2026. At the same time, David, I'm going to switch gears over to IP services. We expect that later this week, we're going to have a draft of a readiness guide that we're going to be releasing to our pilot districts. And obviously that's going to help us ensure that the processes for actual transition okay, work as designed, as well as the preparatory steps that districts need to do to get ready for this, which we feel like are going to be minimal. All right, that all that makes sense and is very clear. So hopefully by the end of the week, our early adopters are going to get a copy of our readiness guide, and we can start reporting on the success of actually transitioning DNS and DHCP over to the new services. Right now, we've been focusing for the last several months on what we call a rack and stack of the InfoBlocks appliances. We've got 127 of 171 districts completed with that. And it sounds like, from what I'm seeing on the schedule, looks like Region 2 is going to be starting or possibly in process for the rack and stack. So we're making really good progress on that. Something I'm just really excited about, and I'm excited about the community leadership I'm seeing with topic number 3, which is the Active Directory decommissioning. Had a super community-led event in Region 1 and in Region 2 on January the 9th and 12th. So special shout out to all those folks across the state that helped put that on. You're going to see, John Logan and some others, possibly myself every once in a while, start making more and more visits to the regional level as we synthesize all the data that we've been collecting. Shout out to Neil Arnett for helping lead that with our advisory group. And it's really data around what are folks doing today in preparation? What are some of the new solutions they're looking at as we move beyond on-premise Active Directory? And we're just getting some great feedback that we're going to be incorporating into a readiness guide and some really overall guidance that we hope to be able to release, if not before, during the CAST event in the spring. So lots of great work going on there, David. I really appreciate, once again, the community leadership that we've seen, the involvement that we've seen, because all of that, including our feedback, just makes us better at what we do. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Chuck. Thanks for leading the effort. Appreciate it. And like Neil's comment there, hardest year is life, but very worth it with the bumps and all. So pleased with the outcome. So when you're on the other side of it, it's a good place to be. And it helps you really prepare for the next 10, 20 years is what you're doing for your district. Couple remaining items. The Kentucky Board of Education, anytime it meets and has an education technology related item, I like to share it with you. This topic, We Lead Computer Science update, was supposed to happen in December. The main person leading that was out ill that day. We had a role. I know Sean Jackson is going to present at it, really showing what we're doing in computer science is tying into that versus it just being its own thing. So Marty or Sean, any other comment you'd like to make what we're going to do with that?
Well, we're gonna highlight, take that opportunity, David, to highlight the annual computer science report. That report, as we've shared with our EdTech leaders in the past, that is a legislative requirement to annually show the growth in computer sciences. Now that captures student growth and participation, which is also broken down a bit and disaggregated by our demographic groups. And also shows teacher progress in terms of permissions to teach computer sciences. So we'll show that report. Sean does an awesome job of leading our K through 12 computer science efforts, and also push on that additional budget request a little bit, I'm sure, being that computer science is a part of that. So thank you.
Yeah. Next month, we're going to spend a whole lot more time on the top 5 feedback. I'll just say that I do appreciate the feedback we got from districts and our own OET staff and different offices. From a district perspective, this definitely helps give your CATS engineer a feel for your district individually and how that compares to other districts in their own region. So thanks for doing that. It also helps us out with our CIO Summit topics. So we typically look at that to see what are good topics for that. I also want to share with you is, much like the CIO Summit, this feedback we try to keep as confidential as possible. So for example, if you're fussing about a certain vendor, is we do use that feedback to approach the vendor, but we keep the district and the name anonymous whenever, when we do that, unless we get your permission to use a specific district prior permission to do that. So we do want to show vendors if it's doing well, they're not doing well, that we do work with, and especially if they're one of our CATS product standard vendors. It allows us to give some feedback to them and just not individually, but show there's a theme with, 5 or 6 or 10 districts. But we always try to keep, just want you to make sure when you're filling that out, you have some confidence that's just not going out to the world. And we try to keep your privacy, because some of the things you're saying to us, you were just saying to us. And we recognize that. Much like I just shared with you what we did with the summit, all that feedback that we share from the summit with AI, it does not have one district listed. If you look at it, it doesn't have one district listed in it with any of the feedback that we've ever shared with that. And I go through and if I see that happening, I'll just edit it out to make sure if it does go public, they don't see who specifically said that. So just want to make sure you have some assurances with that going forward. For anyone on the team, do we have anything that other topics we want to make sure we discuss before we end? We end early. Let's pause there for a moment. Covered a lot of material. I'm always amazed. It's like, well, we can't, can't do that the next month, and it's been happening for 30 years. There's really not a dull, lull period in CETS. That's a good thing, a lot of different ways. So hopefully we'll be able to give you some more news as it happens about legislative session. That's definitely something that's pretty fast moving. And want to thank you, everyone, on our OET staff time. Welcome back to 2026 in the districts. And here we go, another year. So thanks again for your time and energy. Take care.